49-24, Colorado improves to 8-2 against the Utah Utes. It's been a minute since they've beaten the Utes, and this is just a Utah team that they're going through a whole lot right now as a program. It's been a rough season for them. They don't get blown out like this.
No, in fact, I looked up a stat this week. I shared it with you. Only the 10th time in Kyle Whittingham's 20 seasons at Utah that they've lost by 25 or more points, which is crazy. It doesn't happen very often, and certainly it doesn't happen in this rivalry because Utah had pretty much dominated since they joined the Pac-12 together and then obviously moved to the Big 12. But even the Buffs' 2 wins during that stretch were kind of they were tight battles. One was a 17-14, one was down to the wire in 2016. So, I thought, for the Buffs, I know a lot of those guys that were on those teams in the previous years aren't here anymore. But for those guys that were on those teams, this had to be pretty satisfying because they got beat up quite a bit. And Charlie, real quick, was one that was on the last time Utah was here. And 63-21 last time Utah was here. 1 week later, Coach Prime's hired. What a moment for Charlie 2 years later to see that and also be a part of it with the touchdown.
I mentioned they've been going through things. They've had a lot of key players go down with season-ending injuries, and they've really had a hard time locating a quarterback that can play consistent football. It was a mess for them throughout much of today in that position. But defensively, Utah is still really good, and they rank first in the conference in scoring defense. So not all those points were by the offense, and there were issues. There were a lot of people frustrated on social media with Colorado's offense, and I get some of that, but you also have to understand the defense they were going up against is really good.
Yeah, ultimately, 42 of the points came from the offense. Ultimately, they put up 400 yards and 42 points on the number one offense in the Big 12. This was a team that was giving up 17 points a game. I don't remember what the yardage was, but it was the number one, or maybe I think it was the number one pass defense in the conference. At least they were right up there. So what CU did today was really impressive, even through the mistakes, and maybe even because of the mistakes, to still put up those type of numbers through the mistakes they had. Because there were times you're like, come on, guys, what are you doing? I mean, Shedeur starts with an interception. He has the fumbled snap, which we've seen some of those snap issues before. This was not a bad snap. This was just kind of him. Looked like he was trying to, back up and do his drop early and drop the ball. But, yeah, even through all those mistakes, really impressive offensive performance.
I did ask Shedeur Sanders after the game, is the best part of being 8-2 the fact that you guys haven't put it all together, that there are still things you can improve on? He said, we got to cut that out. And that is kind of the feeling because, they're going to go out to Kansas and we'll see how they do against BYU tonight. But that's been a much better football team. And you start talking about, can this team play in a Big 12 championship game? Can they get into the college football playoff? That's when you're going to need a little bit more efficiency and consistency out of this offense than this, especially we've seen really the last couple weeks. I thought coming out or the 2 weeks prior to the second bye week, it felt like they had kind of found that rhythm offensively. Yeah. It's been a little bit more disjointed coming out of that second bye week.
Yeah, which is funny because they've got 90 points in the last 2 weeks. Yeah. But there's some weird stats, and they were brought up in the press conference, but 90 points in the last 2 weeks, yet they're 5 of 24 on third downs in these 2 games, which doesn't make sense because usually, if you're not converting on third down, you're not continuing drives and you're not having success. They've been able to score on first and second downs and move the ball on first and second downs. So it is interesting to see this team. They have not put it together fully yet, which is impressive. Shedeur said we do have to cut it out. But, the way they're playing right now, I mean, they're going to beat a lot of teams the way they're playing like this. But one of the crazy things, too, Adam, we were saying this game was really close to being tight. It was 7 minutes left in the game or so. Utah was in it within 11. Will Shepherd fumbles. Utah takes over, and if they score there, it's a 4-point game. Yeah. But they didn't. Wilson throws his third interception. The Buffs capitalize again, and all of a sudden it's a 25-point game. So you got to give the Buffs credit for the way they closed because they don't always close games well, but they did today.
Draylon Miller stepped up big with Jimmy Horn not able to go today. had his second college touchdown, and that true freshman was really determined to get into the end zone on that play. Over 100 yards for him, and we saw the usual cast of characters. LeJontay Wester, I think, had 10 receptions, and then the 76-yard punt return score, which we'd been waiting on based on kind of his reputation as an explosive returner coming out of FAU. And Will Shepherd, you mentioned the fumble, but he also had 2 touchdowns, and one of those was, again, a fantastic play. The way in Travis Hunter with his deep 40-yard catch was maybe top 5 highlight of his career here. Shepherd and Hunter are as good as any receivers in the country at high pointing the ball, and it's really fun to watch them go after and attack the ball. Yeah,
Will has been on fire lately, and it was impressive to see him today. And Hunter, just that catch he made was unbelievable. He had another one for 26 yards that was wiped off the board at the end of the third quarter because they didn't quite get the snap off. But they're so impressive watching them and LeJontay. It was nice to see because we've been talking early in the year. It was like, I feel like they're going to break one on a kick return, and they didn't, and finally they did. And so LeJontay bust loose. He wasn't even touched, and so that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was a really impressive play. Offensively, the O-line had issues at times today. Again, kind of, is Shedeur trusting the pocket? Is he holding on to the ball too long? Some of those questions that we've had have on the ready to catch the tripod if the wind picks up. But, there were a lot of big playmakers on offense, but it goes back to that point that, how many points were they capable of putting up today against this great defense had they played their best game? And so the sky is kind of the limit, but we just haven't seen that quite yet.
Yeah, for sure. You do have to give Utah some credit, too, for creating some of those things because that is a really good defense, and they did create some of those issues with the way they play. But one guy who's not a great playmaker is Shedeur Sanders, the receiver. And he told us a funny story that the one that Travis scores on late in the game, he goes, I was supposed to catch that ball, but I slipped, and it was funny the way he told it, but he's saying, I realized how tough it is to be a receiver. But Travis got in the end zone anyway. You and I talked about, are they going to do something this week where maybe Travis throws a touchdown pass? They actually had that. They had that in the play, and I saw as soon as I saw that, I wanted to look down. He was like, "This is it," and he didn't get the ball off, but he did get in the end zone.
I was thinking the same thing. Travis with his 3rd interception of the season defensively. I know you had already booked your travel to New York to cover the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Yeah. I did that this morning when I had some time to kill waiting because he just needs to stay healthy these last 2 weeks, and you got to feel really good about him winning that award.
Yeah, even though he didn't put up big stats offensively today, gets in the end zone. I thought that was important for him. For the Heisman purpose, to have a touchdown on the board, have the interception. When you have an interception and a touchdown in a game and you win by 25, that's pretty darn good. The next thing is I got to book to Dallas because it's looking like this team is on track to being in the Big 12 title game.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have gotten this far deep into this video without talking about this defense because we heard Andre Hart, when I asked him about Robert Livingston and what is it that makes him special in coaching for him special, and he said he creates a tribe mentality. Yeah. And you can just see that with this football team. It's a lot of gang tackling. Mm-hmm. It's there's just a ferocity with that group, and you can tell that they're playing for each other as well as for themselves, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a mentality on that defense that we have not seen in a while, and I feel like it's shown up more. I asked Coach Prime about this last week, and he said, well, it's been there. I don't feel like it's been there like this until the last month or so. Like I feel like they've ratcheted it up a little bit the last month or so. Just there's so much they hit so hard, and Levanta and Nakai Hill-Green have been hitting hard all year, and so is Cam. But I feel like there's other guys that are starting to. Amari McNeil is bringing it right now. Chidozie is bringing it. Arden Walker is playing fantastic football right now, and it just feels like the other thing with this defense is, and I asked some of the guys this. Like they're almost fighting each other for who's going to make the next big play, not fighting, but like who's got the next one. And Nakai has an interception, Colton, DJ has an interception, Travis has an interception, and there's Shiloh. With the
that had to feel really good for him.
Yes, and I didn't have a chance to ask Coach Prime this, but with the up and down season that Shiloh's had this year, This is 2 weeks in a row that he's had kind of the closing play on defense to really put a cap and an exclamation point on a big win. Last week, obviously, he picks up the fumble, and this one he gets the strip sack, and they go and add a touchdown. So that had to feel really good for him. He had 0 stats at halftime, by the way, because everybody was doing their job up front. Second half, he winds up with a sack, a couple of TFLs, the forced fumble. Pretty good second half for Shiloh.
And even special teams played well today. We talked about the long punt return, but Daniel Gerlach got a couple touchbacks in there. Yeah. I look at his frame, and I don't understand how he can kick the ball as far as he does, but he gets it done, and he's only going to get better at that. He's a freshman, so I think that that was another positive to take from this. They didn't really need a whole lot from Alejandro Mata, and Mark Vassett, inches away from the perfect punt, but he still finished with a 48.4 yard punt average today. So he had a good game, kind of a bounce back effort for kind of those traditional punts.
Yeah, had a 60-yard punt today, and that one you're talking about, it almost looked like it grazed the inside of the pylon, whereas if it would have just grazed the outside, that would have been the perfect punt. But yeah, he's so good at those. I was watching him in pregame, and just watching him punt the ball and practice sticking it, and it was almost perfect every time. And so, he's fun to watch. He's actually a fun punter to watch. And so, he did have a bounce-back game today.
And you mentioned it, Charlie Offerdahl gets his touchdown. There's so many great stories on this football team, and then people get to sing happy birthday to Peggy in the stands. It was a fun day, as clunky as it was at times, and Isaac Wilson played a really rough game at quarterback for Utah. The one pass that he beat Travis on was like a next level throw, but he was missing wide open guys, throwing some easy throws. So that aided to Colorado. But again, 49-24, Colorado's 8-2. It's one thing to voice a little bit of criticism, but you got to be enjoying this. You can't, because Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders are only going to be here for a handful of more games, and Colorado fans need to kind of take this all in and appreciate it.
There's a really good chance, maybe they get a playoff game, but there's a really good chance that there's one more time that those guys play at Folsom Field, and it's the day after Thanksgiving, and you got to enjoy it. Just have fun with it. Yeah, the offense, you can complain about some things, but man, be glad it's not some of the offenses we're seeing around the country, right, that used to be Colorado. And one other not person that had a really good game today was Ralphie.
Yeah,
Ralphie, and even the first half, I know coming out of the gates a little slow, but man, she picked it up and crossed the 50 both times. And so I think we decided Ralphie's a day buffalo and not a night buffalo.
Yeah, she does not like those 8:30 kickoffs here at Folsom Field. All right, Colorado has doubled their win total from last year. We'll see if they can keep it going.